Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Yeah, the scandal. Many scandals that are out there. You've got, of course, the sign stealing one.
Sign stealer guy.
The Dan Lanning incident. And, of course, Lane Kiffin. You always got to have Lane involved when there's any type of cheating scandal.
Allegedly.
Now, the big to-do right now is all about Dan Lanning using his 12 men on the field to get a 5-yard penalty and to help the clock tick down so that Ohio State would only have time for one play, which means they'd have to do Hail Mary, as opposed to throwing like a 10 or 15 or 20-yard pass play, which is much easier to do, and then kicking a field goal. So Dan Lanning actually been working on this for a while. I'm going to let you hear this from somebody I really enjoy watching, and that's Andy Staples. He explains it beautifully. And then we're going to get into Lane Kiffin, who's not happy about this, and you're going to love why he's so upset.
But what he did against against Ohio State was pretty spectacular. So for those who don't know, what Dan Lanning did is he put 12 people on. He calls timeout. This is as the game is winding down. And Ohio State is getting close to an attempt at what would be a game-winning field goal. Oregon's up 1 point here. Dan Lanning calls timeout, puts 12 men on the field, knowing he's going to get called for it. But the play takes seconds off the clock. And so he's happy for that to give up those yards for the 12 men on the field to take the seconds off the clock. Now, if you don't know your history, you've not seen this before, but this is what Buddy Ryan did when he was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. He called it the Polish goal line. He put 14 players in on the goal line, knowing they would call it to shorten the game. He essentially wanted to make it where the opponent only had one play left. Because remember, a defensive penalty, you can't end on a defensive penalty. So basically ran the clock out and made it where the opponent had one play left. And if you stop that play, you win. And that is kind of where Dan Lanning went with this one. And it was brilliant.
Yeah, and they fixed that in the NFL, and the NCAA came running on this. They decided they couldn't have that going forward, so they did stop it. They've made an adjustment on the rule, and you can't do that anymore. So if you do 12 men on the field, they'll just put the clock back to the exact seconds it was. Like for Ohio State, I believe it was 10 seconds, and they lost 4 or 5 seconds, so they only had time for one more play. With 10 seconds, you can throw a quick out, get out of bounds 10 or 15 yards, and now you're within field goal range. 5 yards didn't do that for him, and he knew that. Dan Lanning, he knew all about it.
Commentary world has decided and struck you as a genius, Stan, for the 12-man penalty and declared that it was intentional. Was it indeed intentional to induce the throw one-on-one against Jabbar in that spot?
He wasn't one-on-one. We actually had a safety on top. So there was so it's called dog. It's when you play, but he wasn't in extremely tight coverage, but he was in dog coverage where he had safety on top of him. And there was a timeout before that. We spent an inordinate amount of time on situations. There's some situations that don't show up very often in college football, but this is one that obviously was something that we have worked on. So you can see the result.
Oh, yeah. He knows exactly what he did. He doesn't want to just come right out and say it, that he did it on purpose, but yeah, he obviously did it on purpose. He can't stop smiling. So anyway, yeah, he would not be good at playing cards. He'd be over there with 4 aces going crazy. Everybody like fold. So anyway, yeah, they're going to change that. I think they've already changed that rule now. So anyway, that's the Dan Lanning thing. And of course, what it reminds you of, even though in my opinion, it's not near as bad because he was within the framework of the rules, you have the big Connor Stalions sign stealing scandal where, yeah, everybody tries to, work around the edges and try to figure out signs. He took it to the whole nother level. I mean, it was unbelievable. He had numerous, according to the NCAA report and all the reports out there from journalists, that he had over a dozen, actually a couple of dozen people out there scouting for him, watching games, and of course recording them, which is forward scouting and recording, both of which are against the rules, and made a mockery of the rule book.
Allegedly.
And of course, it blew up in the Big Ten. All the coaches, head coaches at the Big Ten went nuts on Petitti and forced him to immediately suspend Jim Harbaugh for 3 games, and that was the maximum that Petitti could do. And the NCAA couldn't get to it in time because they're slow as molasses, and they're probably going to be well, I know they're negotiating with Michigan right now. And since Jim left, basically ran away.
Brave Sir Robin ran away.
No!
Bravely ran away.
I didn't!
they're in negotiations to try to figure out something with the NCAA. They're going to hit them pretty hard. It won't be the death penalty or any of that kind of stuff. Those days are long gone. But it's going to be pretty heavy as far as scholarships and things like that. And even the head coach right now has got an issue because he had a problem earlier, so repeat offender and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, the Connor Stalions thing is one of the biggest scandals we've ever seen in decades. And now we've got this other scandal with Lane Kiffin. And of course, I say it's Lane Kiffin scandal because he's the most obvious one that does this. I know people work around the edges of fake injuries, but nobody does it like him, in my opinion. His fake injuries are so obvious and ridiculous, it's absurd. And he chimed in on this. But before we get started, let me just show you one example. I've shown you many, but here's one that's just so obvious. And here's one right here where the quarterback, Jackson Dart, says, go down, go down. Boom! Oh, God, you nailed me. Oh, it's so bad. I don't know what to do. It's the worst injury ever. And that's what they do at Ole Miss. And, of course, I've shown you the ones with Lane over there telling everybody to get down, doing all the crap that they do constantly. It's just, it's never ending. And needless to say, Lane's taking a lot of grief over that, especially from this guy. I've worn him out because I'm going to stop it. I'm going to put a stop to it. But anyway, he chimed in about the Dan Lanning thing. He's not real happy. It talks about his interesting thoughts on Oregon's 12 men on the field illegal maneuver. It says Kiffin has seen his team as a focal point in a separate college football controversy, which is fake injuries, especially from defensive players that can now disrupt or halt an opposing offense's rhythm and flow. And they've been so much at the forefront of it that Ole Miss came out and made a football-wide statement that didn't mean crap. Said, Wednesday, Kiffin addressed the 12 men on the field discussion and marveled at how one element has been praised for its gamesmanship and another one has been ridiculed.
That's not fair.
Don't raise your voice to me.
Says, we have a scenario where that pops up, Kiffin said. He said when asked if it was an element of the game that has his team regularly practiced. He said, it's interesting, though. I find all this national talk about someone faking an injury, and people shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that I don't agree with, but I just found it interesting that everybody thinks this is awesome, that you went against the rules and put more people on the field, but then everybody's up in arms when faking an injury. So just found it interesting. Now, fortunately, Lane Kiffin has agreed once again to come on the show, which is really helpful, and I'm going to ask him about this. So have we got him set up? You got the satellite all squared away? Okay, we're going to talk to Lane now. Hey, Lane.
Hey.
Lane, what's wrong?
Nothing.
Lane.
Well, it's just not fair. It's not fair. Lanning breaks the rules and he's a freaking genius. I break the rules and I'm a bad guy. How does that work? How's that even fair?
No, what Dan did was use rules that really are kind of archaic and should have already been fixed and changed like they did in the NFL. It's not near as sorry as what you're doing with all the fake injuries and all that, allegedly.
Says you. I've only been doing it for 5 years. I mean, if I was doing it, I'd only been doing it for, you know what I mean? I'm not doing anything wrong. I mean, what's the big deal anyway? And stop showing video clips of me telling people to go down. Stop doing it. You're making me look bad. I don't like that. Stop it.
Well, now, Lane, if you'd stop breaking the rules, I'd leave you alone about it. It's a pretty simple solution if you think about it.
Oh, yeah? I got a better idea. Why don't you mind your own business and leave me be?
Now, Lane, you know I can't do that. I'm sworn to stop evil. And, of course, your cheating ways. That's my opinion. Something's got to give. Either you stop cheating or I continue to call you out for your sorry ways.
Oh, yeah? Sports Talk Jay, guess what? You're never going to stop me. And I'll do the exact same thing when I go over to Florida soon enough. Yeah, it's about time for me to stab a university in the back, kind of like I did Tennessee. You remember that?
Hey, you know better than to bring that up to me. You know that's a sore spot.
What, are you still steamed because I left in the middle of the night, the day before National Signing Day? Left Tennessee in a lurch, tried to take the coaches and all the recruits with me. Oh, that really steams you up, doesn't it, buddy? Sorry about that. Mean it. Bye-bye.
Hey, you come back here. I'm not done with you yet. Get him back on. Darn you, Lane. So anyway, Lane's, I guess he's goes out like that. Of course he did. Gets me all upset and angry. Dag nab. Anyway, it is what it is when you're dealing with Lane. That's just how he rolls. And a lot of people have been covering this. I saw where my buddy TJ on College Football Addiction covered it the other day. And he covered it. And look, a lot of people are covering this. It's a big scandal because of Lane. And I don't know if they're ever going to fix it. I really don't. But at some point, he's going to stop doing that. I don't care how many videos I got to make to stop it. But you're going down on this one, Lane. I can promise you that. You are not going to do this forever. He's probably laughing right now watching this. You can laugh all you want, Lane. I'm going to put a stop to your crap. You just might as well know that. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, boom, boom. That little button right there doesn't cost you a dime. It'll help you get my videos. Sometimes it's hard to find them through the algorithm. I don't understand the algorithm at all. Anyway, this video right over here is one that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Once again, based on the algorithm. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.